That's all. That's what it always is, by the way, right? Corporations, they want to privatize profits, but they want to socialize the harms, right? It's like big polluters. Big oil did it for years. Big tobacco did it for years. And now you're seeing it with big AI and big social media, big tech. Welcome to Represent More. I am your host, Ryan Clarkson.
And I'm Shireen Clarkson.
And she's the co-host. And this is our first ever episode. We've been excited to do something like this for quite some time, right, Shireen?
We've been talking about it. Yeah,
we have.
Yeah, we're finally doing it.
An opportunity to kind of demystify our world of public interest law and class actions, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right.
Chance to connect
Everyone
directly.
Everyone wants to know.
Yeah, a chance to connect directly with ordinary people, people within our legal community to talk about, consumer education, public awareness, help people understand their legal rights that might often seem like they don't exist or they're opaque or difficult to understand, especially when people have been harmed in some small way, but in the aggregate, in a big way, right?
Yeah, we can talk about some of our cases or cases that are ongoing, how they work, what goes on behind the scenes, why some cases work, why some cases don't, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll get into all that, but why don't we start off with a little catch up?
I know we haven't seen each other in so long.
So Shireen and I are married. We've been married for over a decade, and we founded and built a public interest law firm that works in a variety of different practice areas, but we've been doing this for about 10 years now. And
well, we've been doing the firm for 10 years. Yeah. We've both been doing this type of practice for 15 to 20.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, since 05 for me. So I'm 20 years in now, 2 decades. Of laying down the law. What about you?
Got a year on you just in terms of the law, not in terms of age.
Just to make that clear.
Just to be clear, yeah.
Right. Okay, good. So we just saw each other not too long ago over coffee.
Right, morning coffee.
Let's talk about the weekend. What was some of your favorite things happening? What did you do over the weekend?
What did we do? We had some people over for the Super Bowl. That was fun. Neither team was necessarily, one of our faves, so we had to make it interesting.
My Detroit Lions did not make it into the playoffs this year, sadly, but plagued with injuries, and I think they'll be back next year. You're a Niners fan, right?
That's where I'm from. Actually, I'm a Raiders fan. I grew up more of a Raiders fan. It was sort of a Niners-Raiders collision there, but I support both. But the Super Bowl, the best thing about the Super Bowl for me was Bad Bunny, I have to say, this year.
Yeah, he was phenomenal.
He was great.
He brought a vibe, didn't he?
He's so good. How can you not love Bad Bunny? How can you not dance to Bad Bunny?
Were there people trying not to dance? I mean,
nobody was trying not to dance, not at our house.
Yeah.
But no, it's good. I also, some people think everybody loves Bad Bunny, I feel. For the most part,
everybody
loves
it. Kind of controversial figure.
No, but it is a bit. I think some people were saying that he's too political, and he was too political at the Grammys, and he's too political at the Super Bowl. But I totally disagree. I think he put on an amazing show, and then if he wants to layer on some commentary about issues that are very meaningful to him and Puerto Rico and are very relevant to the what's going on in the country today, more power to him. I thought it was great.
Yeah. What do you say to people who say, you know what? I remember when LeBron was kind of, getting political, sharing some thoughts about what he was seeing out in the world. There were people criticizing him and saying, shut up and dribble, whatever the musical version of that, shut up and sing, I guess. What do you say to people who say, I don't really care about your politics and, cool, I like your music, but I don't want to hear what you have to say on any issues that fall outside of that?
I get that perspective to some extent, and maybe even feel that way sometimes, especially when I think something a celebrity or a musician or an athlete is saying is not compelling. But I think in the case of Bad Bunny and many others, when they take their opportunity to use their platform to talk about something important, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
I am.
And he's been in the news a couple, he won the Grammy, or a couple Grammys, I guess. I think he won a Grammy. And he used a speech to share some thoughts.
Yeah.
And then I think his whole halftime show was kind of a cool, it honored the people of Puerto Rico, their history, the Latin community in general. And just, that was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it was incredible.
Yeah.
And he's a big ICE out proponent.
Right.
That was his message.
We'll talk a little bit about ICE today. I know things have quieted down a bit in Minnesota since Tom Homan's taken over for, who's the other guy? Greg Bavino or whatever his name was. And, on the heels of the Alex Preddy and Renee Good murders, we'll get into that a little bit. But we'll talk some ICE today. And then I thought maybe we could talk about artificial intelligence. There's some new, what? Why are you laughing at me?
Because you're AI guy. You'll never stop being AI guy. And I don't blame you. It's permeating our lives, and it won't stop anytime soon. So I don't blame you. But
why do you call me that?
You are AI guy. You've been talking about this since before anyone else was. I'll give you that. And you used to talk about it at children's birthday parties. I remember that. And I used to have to tell you to chill out.
Right.
But now it's appropriate. Here we are in a podcast. We can really talk about it. This is the place.
All right. It was one kid's birthday party. All right. And it was a mom, and it was fresh on my mind. And did she listen for a good 4 minutes and then walk away without commentary? Yes, she did.
Yeah.
But whatever. I thought it was prescient though.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was okay. The time is now to talk about it. So this
is the appropriate time, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Not at the kid's 6-year-old birthday party?
6-year-old's birthday
Oh, do you remember whose birthday party that was?
I do.
Whose was it?
I do. It was Sebastian Maniscalco's little girl.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. We didn't know anyone there, and you struck up a conversation with a mom at a little kiddie table about AI. Do you remember your opener?
No, what was it?
You said, have you heard about AI? And it wasn't really it was not really a thing. It was 3-4 years ago. It was barely just sort of coming out into the, in the news. And
in my defense, I think we had just spent 2 or 3 months working up the kind of a groundbreaking lawsuit against Google and OpenAI.
Yeah, before anyone else really had filed anything against any kind of AI company. And so it was brand new to the public.
Yeah.
And you scared some people at that party. But
anyway,
that's okay.
Our daughters were in gymnastics together, so that's where and we became friends with Sebastian and his wife Lana. They're good people.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll talk a little. I think we should talk a little AI because it's always in the news, and I guess the news story that I was thinking about is how big tech, Amazon, laying off tens of thousands of workers. With corporate jobs. So this is impacting people all throughout the economy, whether you're blue-collared or white-collared worker or, whatever, just as we predicted would happen. But, what that means, whether it's really attributable to artificial intelligence or not, and what that means.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the story? What was the new story that you read? The new headline?
Should we get into that now? I guess we could.
I don't know. We can go in whichever order you want.
I read a story about how Amazon has laid off 16,000 workers from their corporate headquarters, as I understand it, in Washington. And they are citing that layoff there's as responsible as the response. What am I trying to say here? They're laying off 16,000 workers.
And blaming it on AI.
Blaming it on artificial intelligence. They're saying we're innovating so quickly and so meaningfully that we don't have a need for these 16,000 corporate workers. And then there's this organization called Forrester that came out and said, not so fast. It doesn't appear that those layoffs are actually directly attributable to AI innovation, and that what might be happening is Amazon and other tech behemoths are just using AI as a pretext to cut costs. And they're pointing to AI innovation as a basis for that, when in fact it might be as a result of, could be corporate mismanagement. It could be just that the business case isn't there for it. It could be as a pretext for just additional cost-cutting measures. And they're calling this a form of AI washing, right? And and you had a comment. I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, my first reaction was sort of like, who cares? Who cares when you're thinking about it from the employee's perspective? Because if you're going to get fired or laid off for financial mismanagement reasons, or because they're implementing some new AI and they don't need you anymore, either of those reasons, maybe it doesn't really matter to the employee who's getting fired.
Yeah.
Like, is there any redress if it was a proper layoff versus they're now using AI? Probably not. So my first instinct was, all right, well, they're saying it, does it really matter that they're using AI as a disguised reason? But I do think it matters to others, right?
Could. I mean, one group of people it could matter to. First of all, even if you're an employee, let's say you're an at-will employee and the corporation doesn't have to give a reason for laying you off, right? Maybe you don't care as much because, it's just the consequence that you're most concerned about. But at the same time, don't you really want to know? Don't you feel like you're owed the truth? If you've given a company your blood, sweat, and tears, they decide to lay you off, you don't want them lying about why they did it on the way out. That just seems to add insult to injury, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But it would certainly matter to other groups. Think about investors, for example. If the stated reason from Amazon as to why they laid off 16,000 workers is AI innovation, they're helping their bottom line by reducing costs and thereby increasing profits and profit margin. If I'm an investor buying this publicly traded stock, I'm probably willing to pay more for that stock at that point, right?
Yeah.
But if the publicly stated reason is BS, and the actual reason that they're laying people off is because of financial mismanagement or something else, and I'm an investor, I'm probably only willing to pay less than whatever the stated market price is for a stock. So I think it could absolutely have implications. I mean, we represent investors in shareholder class actions, right? That would seem to be a viable theory, putting misinformation out into the public sphere that investors then rely on to either buy or sell stocks. I think that could present a real problem for companies engaged in this form of AI washing.
Yeah, I agree. No, any form of misinformation is not good, obviously. I was just thinking about it from the consequence to the person who's getting fired, and whether that matters or not. But yeah, of course it matters. We don't want misinformation out there. And the public deserves to know the truth as well, because if the public is being told that companies like Amazon and other big companies, big or small, are continuously terminating employees, huge groups of employees due to AI, it's gonna add to this sort of the alarm that is already ringing about job displacement and how fast that's occurring. If it's occurring at a slower rate than what's actually being said, then maybe it's not so imminent, or maybe it is, but we deserve to know.
100%. Yeah, I mean, we want to understand what the real impact of AI is on jobs, because jobs is just one of the concerns we have, by the way. Kind of, we talked about 2-3 years ago, we were talking about short-term, medium-term, and long-term harms from artificial intelligence. And it's what seemed to be an irrational and erratic and irresponsible rollout of this godlike technology, right? Rippling itself throughout the economy in myriad ways, entangling itself in every aspect of commerce, and what that would mean, right? And job displacement was one of those things we circled as something we need to really keep our eye on.
Yeah, and that's one that seems to be the most imminent. It seems like job replacement, we identified that as being one of the first, call it consequences or results of AI. And then there's the more significant, I don't want to say more significant, but the next in line and then the next, right? We sort of identified it in a timeline to the best of our ability.
Sure.
But job displacement is happening. But I read that it's happening at a slower rate than what was originally predicted. Right? Didn't we read some statistic about?
I don't know.
Approximately 6% of jobs are going to be obsolete in the next by 2030.
Okay.
This is one of the statistics I read.
It sounds familiar. Something, yeah.
Which is not as drastic as what they were saying just last year, which was in 5 years, like up to 20% of jobs are going to be gone, and we better hustle and figure out what we're going to do. I just don't think it's happening as fast. It's happening, and 6% is not insignificant. But
we want good information, though, because if big
just
tech
want to know.
is planting stories and giving, planting stories that they're laying off tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of workers due to AI innovation and displacement, but it's not that. It just adds to a couple things. One, this kind of it creates an unsettling or unnerving feeling in the kind of people looking for jobs or people in certain jobs, right?
Yeah.
You just don't know how solid you are, depending on what it is you're doing for work. And then also just, again, we're already living and working on this technology curve that is straight up and down. I mean, like, we're here on the technology curve, right? And it's so hard to keep up because it's, this technology is evolving so rapidly. But you need good information so that you can at least try to figure out, it's like the hockey analogy. You want to be able to skate not to where the puck is right now, but to where the puck is going to be. And so you need good information in order to be able to do that, right? If you're flooding the public sphere with misinformation about the true impact of it, then, it kind of just creates a lot of confusion, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. So what were the two other areas you were about to talk about?
What do you mean?
The areas that we identified as potential consequences of artificial intelligence coming out.
Oh my gosh!
The job displacement was sort of the one you were about to mention a couple others that we've been identifying.
We can just look at the work we're doing at our law firm.
Yeah.
Start there.
Yeah.
So we see. You and I have been doing false advertising and consumer protection cases for like 2 decades now, right? And I think your bread and butter, I would say, is food cases and cosmetics cases, nutraceuticals, pharmaceuticals, those types of cases, dietary supplements. There's probably no attorney in the country, if not the world, I would say, that knows false advertising law in that sphere better than you do. So, greenwashing cases and food misbranding, cosmetics, contamination, and that sort of thing. But we're also seeing it with artificial intelligence, another form of AI washing, similar but different to what we just described. And that would be corporations who are trying to show that they're able to deliver an economic benefit to their shareholders by harnessing the power of AI, right?
Mm-hmm.
When in fact, they're not really harnessing the power of AI as well at all. And in fact, they haven't been able to meaningfully identify use cases for AI in their business. And, an example of that would be our Apple case, right? We have a case against Apple right now. When they planted their flag, and they were way late relative to the rest of the technology companies, so behind the curve a couple of years ago when they rolled out their iPhone 16 generation of iPhones. And that was going to be their souped up, enhanced Siri, personalized, digital assistant, I guess, that was going to change the game for AI enhanced phones. And they weren't able to deliver on that promise. Turned out to be a lie. And we filed a suit on behalf of, many millions of purchasers of the iPhone 16 who believed they were getting an AI benefit and never received it. Now, Apple claims that they're going to roll out this technology eventually and that it's just a matter of delay. But it has been a couple of years since they rolled that out. But, that's a form of AI washing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And we see other companies doing that as well. So that's a type.
Yeah.
Another is our healthcare cases where you've got AI and enhanced, I would say AI or advanced algorithmic technology that health insurance companies, the biggest ones in the country, are using to replace licensed physicians' decision-making in determining to what extent certain policyholders, in this case, Medicare Advantage plan holders, have certain rights they have to medical care involving post-acute care and rehabilitation care and that sort of thing. People being shortchanged, kicked out of rehab centers because contrary to the physician, the prescribing physician's opinions on it, and AI is saying, no, you don't get that care. You don't need that care. And so they're booting them out early. Some with catheters still in or, still in devices like traction devices and that sort of thing. People dropped off at their homes, dumped on gurneys, waiting for loved ones to take them. It's insane what's happening. That is a now issue as well.
Yeah.
Not to mention our labor cases involving the kind of new AI economy and the way in which workers in that space are being shortchanged. They're not getting paid overtime, meals, rest breaks. They're being misclassified. They're being exposed to horrific content without adequate training or guardrails in place. I mean, so the AI is a now issue in terms of the harms that have been exported into society in ways well beyond just job loss.
Yeah. I just want to state that while there's so much good that can come from artificial intelligence, and I think about those things, the medical advancements that they're working on, and there's so much exciting, so many exciting developments, right, with AI, but it's dampened by the early rollout and the misuse that's just happening too quickly. And it's because these companies are just so in a rush to make a damn profit.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just, I wish, well, and that's what we're doing. We're trying to find that balance, right? I wish we could find that balance. I wish the legislature could help find that balance. But while they act very slowly and maybe not at all, especially with this administration, we, in the meantime, hopefully can make some impact in this way, because I want to be excited about artificial intelligence, and I am, right? Yeah. And there are so many tools.
What are you excited about?
I mean, there's so many interesting tools out there right now that we can use.
What
For
are you
example,
using? Are you?
I mean, yeah. I use it all the time as a thought partner and to brainstorm ideas and it gives me lots of interesting ideas.
Which one are you using?
I feel like I have to fact check every single thing that I learn from an AI tool right now, but that's okay, because at least it triggers some creativity sometimes. It triggers some ideas, some information that I didn't otherwise know. Again, I go fact check it because I just don't trust it all.
I do that too.
Just yet. But
I use it as a thought partner too. I think that's a great use for it.
Yeah, it's a great use. And I think there's a lot of ways we can use it in our law practice. I think there in most industries, it can be a helpful tool and sort of low level, clerk or informational
But just not as good as any of that right now, right?
It's just not good enough where I feel like it can be relied on, at least not in the spaces that I've used it in.
And you have to verify everything.
That's exactly right. That's what I mean. That's what I mean by fact check. I have to just double check everything that I, you're
not using it to write briefs and, actual generate work product unless
I think we will get to that where it's going to be, I'm sure there will be AI softwares that will draft very good and reliable legal briefs. I'm sure that's the day it's going to come.
It seems like it's just a matter of time.
It feels like that.
Yeah.
But we don't use it at our firm, and we're just not there yet.
Well, when you say we don't use it at our firm, I'm sure that we are using it. People at our firm are using artificial intelligence tools. I mean, I myself am using it,
but not to draft briefs.
No, not to draft briefs. Correct.
That was my point.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. God, that would be fantastic though if you could get like a really reliable brief using one of these AI chatbots or whatever.
Yeah,
be amazing.
I mean, once the sort of legal research and citations piece of it is optimized and reliable and accurate, it's going to work.
At least a good first draft.
First draft, right? But
because you're still going to want to add your polish to it, your storytelling to it, your voice, but then again, all that could probably be trained into an AI as well based on what we've seen, right?
Oh, absolutely. You can tell your AI currently, like a ChatGPT or any other little, AI writing tool you use, to draft something in a particular tone, right? I mean, they say it's all about the prompts. How whatever you can come up with as your prompt, your product, your work product will be as good as your prompt at this point.
So here we say.
But it's still concerning, risky, it feels, to use these tools.
Well, here we are. We're debating the risks and benefits of AI. That's what this conversation's all about. So we can point to really positive uses, and this is just in our world of civil litigation, right? Yeah. But there are obviously a myriad other positive use cases as well, from medical drug discovery to diagnostics for cancer screening and all kinds of stuff like that, right? But then we're also thinking through all of these horrible things that have been foisted upon society due to the misuse of it, the irresponsible deployment and use of it. We didn't even talk about the way in which AI is being used with like these character AI chatbots or ChatGPT that have isolated and coached kids to commit self-harm and in some cases suicide. I mean, could you ever even imagine, 5-10 years ago, having a discussion about how a computer would be able to do those things and have such life-shattering consequences, family, shattering consequences? I mean,
yeah,
it's crazy.
And such a direct sort of liability, path. I mean, it's either the sole or major, primary contributing factor to these cases. These cases of people harming themselves or committing suicide. I mean, it's really, that's the worst case, consequence of this of AI right now.
Yeah. So I mean, just thinking through some of the lawsuits that misuse and irresponsible use and even the defective technology that served as a basis for potential liability against these big corporations, on behalf of large groups of people we represent. Just think about our cases. We've got our cases, the healthcare cases against Humana, Cigna, and United Healthcare. We've got wage and hour or employment type class action cases against scale AI and surge AI, for essentially in this kind of sub economy of AI trainers that they created. On the one hand, exposing them to horrific content that's been the source of emotional and in some case physical manifestations of emotional distress, but also, shortchanging them of wages they're entitled to because they're misclassifying them as independent contractors instead of employees, and they're robbed of the employment and labor code protections that they're entitled to under California law and other state laws, and federal law, right? There's the Fair Labor Standards Act, right? FLSA liability, and then state labor code liability as well.
Mm-hmm.
Then we talked about consumer protection claims that we've brought. Our Apple case being a big one there. And what other AI cases? And I guess what we're also looking at is cases that sound in product defect and failure to warn, perhaps wrongful death, right? That have been brought by families of, kids, teenagers who have killed themselves as a result of suicide coaching from ChatGPT or Character AI or whatever. Yeah. I mean, those are really important cases, and they seem to be, sadly, just the tip of the iceberg based on what we've seen, What do you think?
I think these are, like I said, these are among the most sad and highly consequential, cases when it comes to AI. So,
heartbreaking.
Yeah, just sort of unbelievable that's what's going on.
Right. Okay. Well, let's wrap up this topic. Was there something else we wanted to talk about on artificial intelligence?
Well, no, I mean, not on. I think we can move on. I think one thing I read recently in the news that I think is sort of related, not quite artificial intelligence, but it's the social media effect. Let's just carry on with this horrible, sort of depressing. But look, it's an important topic that we touch on a lot in our cases, so can't help but talk about it. Social media. You think about, why isn't the legislature doing anything about AI to slow it down? Well, you could say the same thing about social media and why the legislature in America has not done anything about social media and children's access to it.
Complete political gridlock. Right?
And it's so clear, no one will dispute. The companies, of course, know this, but so does society, so does the legislature, so does everybody agrees that the social media impact on at least children, I think it's probably everyone, but at least children, is extremely harmful. And I mean, the addiction, the social pressures, the
loneliness, the depression, the self-harm, the suicide,
the brain development, it's just, the list goes on, and nothing's being done about it. But other countries are starting to do something about it. And so I read this news story last week from Spain. Spain announced last week that they're going to put a ban on social media access for anyone under 16 years old. And that's something that I think they did in Australia last year. France is doing it, has just done it last September. Denmark has done it, and Portugal has done it. So the countries in the EU are starting to roll that out. And I'm just sitting here thinking, why is America behind on that one? I mean, the answer is sort of, maybe I have some thoughts on what the answer is, but
let me riff on this for a moment, because not that I just didn't totally go off on AI, but this is on social media, and really the same argument we're hearing about AI from the administration is that they don't want to lose. This is more AI. They don't want to lose the AI arms race, right?
But that doesn't apply to
it doesn't apply to social media.
Well, except that we're a capitalist country and we want to make sure that the big tech companies, are not losing out on any profits and are able to operate as they need to.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, aside from that, but there's no arms race necessarily aside from allowing companies to profit and supporting their efforts to profit.
I'm not so convinced about the AI arms race justification as being particularly persuasive.
But even if you're not persuaded by it, it is happening. I mean, it is happening.
No, I know there's an arms race, but I just don't think that the administration's stated reason for allowing this arms race to continue is that we're going to lose to China or something like that. I think we have the ability to roll out guardrails and let it serve as a blueprint for the responsible use and the safe use of this technology without just going pure laissez-faire. I actually think it's the profit motive that really is the key driver behind the laissez-faire approach, not some concern about AI arms race. What do you think?
Yeah, because it seems like there could be both. Both could exist. In other words, we could keep up with the global arms race, right? And make sure we're not behind on artificial intelligence as it relates to global power, while still putting in some guardrails in some contexts, right? In the United States that keep people safe in some ways at least. But there are no efforts being made. And to your point, that's the big justification. It doesn't seem to apply in every instance.
And to the extent we're going to use national security as the justification for a laissez-faire approach, let me flip it. Okay? Let me just say this. I would say that the most important way to preserve national security is to preserve the safety of our children, because they are the future of any country. Spain and Australia and these other European countries seem to get that. It's a country's most precious resource because they're going to carry the torch going forward.
Yeah.
So if you're not going to protect your children, a whole generation who has, been withering away, within this new digital universe where they're becoming more isolated, less engaged, their development's being stunted, their mental development, their emotional development. I mean, that seems to be a national security rationale for making illegal for minors in the way that these other countries have. So, something to think about.
Yeah. I love that. So not only are they in Spain, not only are they putting new legislation in order to require platforms to have age verifications.
Yeah.
And not just checking a box. It has to be something, more effective than that. But they're holding social media execs accountable for any illegal content. So
criminally accountable?
Yes. So they're criminalizing algorithms that amplify any misinformation.
It's amazing.
Because that's what these algorithms do, right? They are made to, there's some story about this that may or may not be true. Let's find a way to get it out to everyone because it's juicy and it's the thing that's going to keep everyone's attention. But that's going to be criminalized.
That's one way to give a law some teeth.
Yeah. And then, and they're going to have implement tools to monitor misinformation and hate speech and child pornography. And to the extent that any platform allows that type of information on the platform, and even worse, if they have algorithms that amplify that kind of information from going around, criminal accountability. So I love that. And why can't we have that here? That's something I want to I really want to think about and find ways to advocate for.
So what's really interesting about what you just said is that there'll be accountability and perhaps criminal accountability for misinformation when it's amplified by a tech company and their platform. Yeah. And I'm actually thinking about how here we have the exact opposite with Section 230.
Yeah.
You've got platform immunity.
Right. Rather than criminalize it, you protect them. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable.
Section 230 is it provides immunity to online platforms for being treated as the publisher or speaker of content created by third parties.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, that's exactly it. So this criminalizing the algorithm is a way to get around that, really.
Absolutely. Well, we could do that. Here, we could repeal 230 and implement something like this instead.
But maybe you even get around 230 by attacking the algorithm that is amplifying it. In other words, because their defense is always, well, we can't be responsible for what other people are putting on our platform. That's not us publishing it. It's other people. And we can monitor as best we can. But they have algorithms that are perpetuating all of that because that's what gets them profits and gets them more views and more action.
I think a number of plaintiffs and their lawyers have made that argument. We had a case, we submitted an amicus brief on behalf of United States generals who weighed in on the way in which certain platforms were being used by terrorists to expand their message, and the platforms who were allowing this content to live and be amplified on their platforms were, of course, getting ad revenue in connection with that.
So how are those cases doing?
I don't think that the case came down in our favor, sadly, because of this Section 230 immunity issue.
Yeah.
It is such a problem.
Yeah.
But we should have Glenn Danis, our partner who runs our appeals and writs department, one of the best appellate attorneys in the country, come on and talk about some of his work, and especially, involving that issue, because I do think it's an important one. People just aren't aware of the real consequences of Section 230. It's super opaque, and the way in which it creates free rein for these tech companies to kind of, just profit, notwithstanding the negative harms that have been socialized into our society. It's crazy. That's what it always is, by the way, right? Corporations, they want to privatize profits, but they want to socialize the harms, right? It's like big polluters. Big oil did it for years. Big tobacco did it for years. And now you're seeing it with big AI and big social media, big tech.
Yeah.
All right. So should we move on and talk about, you want to talk about ICE, what's going on over there a little bit, and, Minnesota and just in general?
Yeah, we need to lift the mood a little.
Wow, this has been kind of an intense, well, you know what? A lot of our work is pretty intense. So just sneaking in a bellowing laugh like I just did, is probably cathartic, right? Even if it doesn't happen too often.
I know. Adia is our daughter. She told me the other night, we were talking about what she wants to be when she grows up, and she was going through it, and she's like, I think about being a lawyer sometimes. She got two parents that are lawyers. I think about being a lawyer sometimes, but then I just feel like I don't want to argue all the time with everybody. It seems, she's like pointing out some of the the darkness, but
yeah, I get that.
But she also loves that, on a good day, she'll say, I want to be a lawyer because you guys stand up for people. So.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. The good with the bad with this job.
Yeah. Sadly, if you're going to, you're going to represent ordinary people and try to give the voiceless a voice or an opportunity to regain their voice, or, the tools to hold power to account, it's going to be uncomfortable. It can be messy. It can be difficult. We're a law firm that represents the underdog. And so we're constantly fighting this David versus Goliath fight every single day. And yeah, it is very adversarial, but it's super rewarding and very fulfilling too. You know?
Yeah. And we got to talk about some tough topics.
We have to talk about the tough topics, but it is nice to like keep our sense of humor to the extent that we can when we can.
Yeah.
I like to laugh.
I know you do. I know you do. All right, ice. Shall we?
Ice.
Oh, I know you read.
The thing I wanted to touch on is it seems like there's a lot of confusion surrounding this issue of administrative warrants versus judicial warrants, because there have been groups of ICE agents knocking on doors and seeking entry into homes to execute not on judicial warrants, but on administrative warrants. And so, but it seems like it's kind of a strange area of the law that most people aren't familiar with. And even a lot of lawyers, I think, aren't really familiar with it, perhaps. But, there is an important difference, because judicial warrants are, what's the purpose of a warrant? Let's just zoom out for a second, right? The purpose of a warrant is to adhere to the Constitution, particularly the Fourth Amendment, which prohibits unreasonable searches and seizures. You have to follow, one has to follow the Constitution if a state actor is going to seize someone's person, i.e. arrest them, or their property, right? That is a constitutional protection, and it is, expressly protected in the Bill of Rights under the Fourth Amendment. So one of the ways in which we adhere to the Fourth Amendment when it comes to searches and seizures is we have a warrant requirement. And that is a judicial warrant requirement. And a judicial warrant is something that is either signed by an Article III judge, so a federal judge, or a magistrate judge. And a magistrate judge is also a federal judge, but they are judges that aren't appointed by the president and approved by the Senate, but they are permitted to essentially help federal judges with case overload, certain aspects of cases. And so we have conferred upon magistrate judges the power to sign judicial warrants. Warrants have to be based on probable cause, signed by a magistrate judge or an Article III judge. And that's very different than what we see with administrative warrants. An administrative warrant is something that is essentially created by an administrator, by someone from, in this case, an ICE supervisor can, fill out a form. It's not based on probable cause. It's not signed by a magistrate judge or an Article III judge. And then they try to execute on an arrest or to search a place, perhaps someone's home. The problem is a lot of people don't know when they answer the door that they have to consent to someone executing on an administrative warrant, whereas a judicial warrant creates the ability to search a particular place or to arrest a particular person, right? So there's a lot of confusion. And in fact, there have been stories coming out that members of ICE and Border Patrol have been using administrative warrants and trying to convince people that they're judicial warrants when they're not. So misrepresenting, in boots on the ground environment.
They just say we have a warrant. I have a warrant. And they're not explaining what kind it is. Not that anyone would even know the difference, most people.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a big no. It used to be that.
Well, I think with an administrative warrant, an ICE agent can arrest somebody in public.
Right.
And can put them in detention, can detain them, And that's what they're able to do with their administrative warrant. What they can't do is enter someone's home like you could with a judicial warrant.
Exactly.
But they
and
are
place,
but
same
they're
with
going,
the place of business.
Yeah.
Right?
But they're going to these homes and businesses and saying, I've got a warrant, and people are and intimidating them with their scary tactics, and people are just letting them in or resisting. And then that resist can constitute a extenuating circumstance that allows the administrative warrant to be used to go into the home. Do you understand? So either they have to give consent, or look, extenuating circumstances have to be super egregious, but these ICE agents are saying, oh, they resisted, or they caused a problem, or they got physical, whatever it is. And then they're using that to go in.
And you know what makes this issue even worse? There was an article I read. It came out in CBS News, and they did a study. I'm not. They either covered some organization that did the study, or they did it themselves. And the study shows the percentage of people arrested. There have been some 400,000 people arrested in the last year by ICE.
Mm-hmm.
And they did an evaluation of that 400,000 population and broke down what they were arrested for, whether they had criminal histories, et cetera. And let me make sure I've got this right. So, here it is. It's CBS. Oh, golly, where is it?
Are you looking for the statistic?
Do you have it?
It's 14%. 14% of immigrants who've been arrested over this last year by ICE are
serious criminals,
violent criminals.
Violent criminals. So that would be
14%.
Murderers, rapists.
The kind that the administration stated they were after, and that they were trying to eliminate.
So every time we hear, the president has a mandate, this is what he was elected to do. No, the people got behind him enforcing immigration policies against what he called the worst of the worst, the murderers and the rapists, et cetera, right? But I think 40% have no criminal history whatsoever, right? And the only thing any of those people had was maybe they had some issue related to their immigration status.
And often not even that. So many people are getting arrested, and I don't have the statistic on this, but people who have not even violated civil immigration laws. They're in no violation of anything. They're just immigrants who are going through the lawful process of becoming either residents or citizens. So people who, for example, are about to become citizens and have been invited to the immigration office to complete their citizenship process and to get finality, and they get arrested right there. So
we should just talk about who we met over the weekend.
Yeah.
We were kind of in our old neighborhood, and we used to go to this balloon store, and our daughter loved it. She was, 2, 3, 4, 5 years old at the time. And so this balloon store was right next to a farmer's market that we used to go to on the weekends. And the owner of the balloon store is this husband and wife. And it's a Persian couple. And we ended up in that area of town over the weekend, and we decided to pop by the farmer's market. We went by the balloon store, and in the window of the balloon store was a picture of the owners of the store. A really nice picture of them, looked like at one of their birthdays. Big smiles on their face, just looking, so happy. And the poster said, "My wife was taken by ICE 6 months ago." And essentially a plea for help from the public. And this is the story of Sharade Moghadam, who was a green card holder, and she had passed her citizenship test, and she was waiting for an announcement from the immigration office that she was getting her citizenship, and receives some outreach from an local immigration office in Los Angeles. And she goes into the office thinking that they're going to give her citizenship, and ICE detains her and takes her to an ICE detention center in Phoenix, Arizona. And she has been living there. She's been detained in this detention facility for the last 6 months. And we had a chance to talk to her husband, who is still working at this store, and he just looks like a broken man. It looks like he's aged 20 years in the last 6 months.
Yeah. They're an older couple.
Well,
she's 55. She's older.
She's only in her mid 50s, and he's in his kind of older, early to mid 70s, I think.
Yeah.
But, a youthful, always a youthful kind of 70s. And he just looks like stress and worry has overtaken him. And we had a chance to talk to him for about a half hour. And, it's one thing to see these things on television. It feels like there's a distance between us and them, as it were, right? But when you sit down and you speak to, his last name is he's Mr. Agdassi. When you speak to Mr. Agdassi and you hear about his wife's story and the hell that they've been living in the last 6 months, the conditions, horrible conditions she's been living in for the last 6 months, it gives you a different perspective. And I'll tell you what, it made me want to use whatever skill and intellect and training I have as an attorney to help this man and his wife obtain justice and to reunite this family. I mean, that's why I became a lawyer, is to be able to help people like that. And so whether, we can unlock the pro bono machinery of our civil litigation law firm to help people like Mr. Agdassi and Mrs. Mogadam, or, people like that, I think we need to do whatever we can to do that.
Yeah, I totally agree. That was a heartbreaking story. And it makes me think about what this is. I mean, I continue to think of trying to figure this out. What is this all really about? Because it's not about crime prevention. It's not about criminal law enforcement. It's not. And it's not even about, I don't even know if it's just about immigration regulation and enforcement, because they're not even targeting true, people who are truly having problematic status. These are people who are going through the process lawfully and have good status, some of them. So what is it really about? And I think it's about, I think Trump and this administration, by design, of course, chose immigration as the big focus, because it's an area where, yes, immigrants have some constitutional rights, surely, but they are weaker. And it's a perfect area for Trump and this administration to execute power and try to expand executive power, right?
And divide us.
Divide us for sure, scare people for sure. It's a deterrence strategy. It's right. Let's make sure people are scared. Let's put them in their place. Let's make sure people know that the executive power can and will be used as needed. And they're reshaping. They're trying to normalize unequal constitutional rights. I think it's just the perfect area for them for the executive branch to do this, because it's a weaker area. It's where the rights are not as clear. There is some gray area, so they can put ICE out there. And
I totally agree.
They have a way, they have a way of getting away with it. You can't necessarily push ICE onto, non-immigrants, right? But you can't put the federal military
on citizens.
On citizens. It would be harder to do, and he's done that, of course. And there's ways that could be done as well. But this is a prime area. Immigrants are the perfect vulnerable population for this administration to try to start expanding its power against, and to show people that it's not going to be easy to exercise your rights.
Let me connect one other dot, because I think you're right, but I actually think that they are exercising power in order to suppress not only immigrants and make things difficult for immigrants, but I also think that they're trying to scare citizens. And we're seeing that, right? So let's connect some dots. You have ICE in the streets in Minnesota, right? And they are quelling protests. They are creating a mess through a show of power that is quelling people's First Amendment rights to free speech and the right to assemble and right to protest. They are negatively impacting the Second Amendment, people's rights to bear arms, and the way that Minnesota state law safeguards and our Constitution and the Second Amendment safeguards. We talked about Fourth Amendment, right? The rights to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures, and how they're trying to negatively affect the Fourth Amendment rights of people through the misuse of administrative warrants. And the list goes on and on. And to what end? Why? Why the show of power? Why the suppression of rights? And I'm just thinking ahead to this November. This November, if you look at what many of the polls are showing as to in terms of their support or disdain for this administration and the politicians that support this administration, November is going to be a bloodbath for Republicans. And there is going to be a huge pendulum swing in power if there's a fair election. If there's a fair election, they're going to get their asses handed to them. Right?
Yeah, that's what the polls are showing.
So what does that leave Trump with? The person who is most willing to fight unfairly, right, has to do that for his political survival. Because if there's a huge pendulum swing in power and the Democrats take over both houses of Congress, he very likely will be impeached, right? Well, he knows that his survival depends on that not happening. And so he has to fight dirty. And so what do you see? Roll out of ICE and all of the blue cities and blue states in order to vilify them
states. Yeah.
and make people fearful of the administration.
Mm-hmm.
And what did we hear last week? He wants to nationalize the election process, right?
Yeah.
Under the guise of needing to regain trust. People need to regain trust in elections, right? So anything that would harm him in terms of the election, mail-in voting, wants to get rid of that.
Right.
Wants to federalize elections so that they can do whatever sinister things they want to do under the cover of darkness and opacity, right? Because we know this administration is willing to lie, right? This administration lies about everything. Immigration's a perfect example of it. The murder of Alex Preddy had video footage of exactly what happened. And you saw Kristi Noem, the head of Homeland Security, within minutes come out before any investigation, before even knowing what was going on, say that he was brandishing his weapon, which he was not doing. And Stephen Miller, the senior White House advisor, coming out saying he was trying to inflict maximum damage, and a radical leftist, and Greg Bovino, head of ICE, and all of them lying. Which brings up a totally different issue, by the way, as to whether, I've always wondered, how it is that they're able to get away with that, given the defamation laws and that sort of thing. It's just sad that you can have these horrible atrocities committed, these flagrant constitutional violations, and then you layer on top of that lies, right? Just lies and spin. And where's the accountability for that, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, I think that's how it all fits together. And it's just going to be really important for everyone to turn out in November and do whatever it takes in order to make their voices heard through the ballot box.
Yeah.
We've been going for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
By the way, on defamation, do you know what the rule is on defamation as it relates
against,
to a defamation case brought by an ordinary person against
a government official?
Yeah. Do you know what the standard is?
I'm sure they have some immunities.
They've got sovereign immunity.
Mm-hmm.
This is why you never see these cases, or if anyone's filed, it never goes anywhere. Government officials have sovereign immunity, right? So they get complete immunity from anything they do or say in their official line of work. You've got the Federal Tort Claims Act, where you can bring suit against a government official or an agency, but there's a carve out for libel and slander and defamation. So that's very difficult. And then even if you could get something through, the standard is very, very high. There's a negligence standard for just normal damages when it comes to a public official as the defendant. But if you want to get punitive damages, you need to show actual malice.
Yeah.
And so it's just so hard.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's crazy. I think we should actually look at whether there should be some kind of a federal defamation regime. We've been going for a while now. Should we bring it to a close?
I think so. Yeah.
How are we going to close these podcast episodes?
So we've got a little exercise we're going to close with, and it's called Rosebud Thorn, and it's something we do with our daughter, with our 9-year-old every night, which is we go through and we talk about what was your rose for the day, meaning something great that happened or something you feel really good about. What was your thorn, something not so great that you want to share with each other, and then what was your bud, something you learned from or are going to grow from. So it's a nice little exercise we do with our daughter every night, and we thought we'd bring it here, but instead of going through every single one, I think we'll pick one: rose, bud, or thorn.
Okay. Okay.
We'll pick one every episode. Do you have one you want to share?
I've got a rose. We talked a little bit about this at the top of our discussion, but I would say my rose was Bad Bunny's halftime show yesterday. I absolutely loved it. We were partying, it was actually the best part of the game because the game was kind of a snoozer. Seattle kind of ran away with it. It was low scoring. It was very defensive.
Yeah.
It wasn't like that kind of offensive shootout where it comes down to the end like you like to see in past, or have seen in past Super Bowls. But did I say Rose Bowl? I meant Super Bowl. I might have said Rose Bowl because we're doing Rosebud Thorn. So the Super Bowl halftime show with Bad Bunny, that's when we probably had the most fun, and we were dancing, and it was just really a lot of fun. And I do like the message behind it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Good Rose, Bad Bunny. Okay.
Good Rose, Bad Bunny. That's right.
Yeah. I'm going to talk about a bud, and we'll close it with my bud. I think my bud this week is, I didn't think that you and I, could do yet another project together where we are, partner to partner, hip to hip, doing it again.
Heart to heart.
Heart to heart.
There you go.
That's right, right? We're
good
married,
show.
we co-parent, we are business partners, we live together. We do it all together. And I didn't think we could do a podcast, adding it on to our list of things, but here we are, and I feel good about it, and I'm excited about it, and we got one in the books. So
up top,
good stuff. That's my bud.
All right, that's a good one. I totally agree. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to this journey with you, and we're basically taking our morning coffee discussions and we're just putting cameras in front of us, and
right.
Maybe we should do coffee or something.
Yeah.
During these.
Yeah, and we'll bring some guests to kind of mix it up a little, so it'll be fun.
All right, well, we've got one in the books. A lot of fun. I'm going to read us out. Represent More is a production of We Are Them Media, featuring me, Ryan Clarkson, and my co-host, Shireen Clarkson. Represent More is produced and edited by Marketing for Justice and Q Michelli and recorded live at our studio here in Malibu, California. Be sure to subscribe to Represent More wherever you get your podcasts, and find us on Substack at substack.com/representmore. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.